Hello, Mr. Rambles. Would you like to teach summer school this year? Why would I do that? Because we're paying. When do I start? Welcome back to Teacher Tales, where we give you the keys to overcoming teacher burnout to find work-life balance and educational bliss if it still exists. I'm your host, Tony Rambles, and on this episode of Teacher Tales, we dissect Ed Mintum's article on 5 ways to maximize summer school to make it a positive environment for teachers to teach and children to learn. Yeah, it's summer, but don't burn out. Welcome, fellow educator, to the Teacher Tales podcast, and today we are going to be covering Ed Mintum's Making the Most of Teaching Summer School. Now, some people teach summer school every year without fail for one reason or another. I think most of those reasons would be in dollars and cents, but maybe some people just want to stay sharp. Maybe they just like teaching and want to do it all year round. I haven't met that person, but if you are that person, more power to you. No judgment here. The article starts off with this. Teaching summer school and attending summer school both have a particular stigma that can make it a source of dread for everyone involved. And although the length of summer school continues to decrease with budgetary pressures, it has proven a valuable resource. Still, everyone in the room would probably rather be on the beach. I 100% agree with that. So here we are, how to make the most out of those 2 weeks or so of summer school. Number 1, accentuate the positive while teaching summer school. That summer school stigma desensitizes many teachers who opt for summer duty. They automatically might think the worst of the students who find themselves participating. The truth is that if these students weren't invested in their education, they wouldn't be there in the first place. Kids who don't want to succeed wouldn't take the time. If you don't typically work with students in summer school classes, now is the time to broaden your horizons. Let's skip down here a little bit. One of the first things that the article says is to get to know your students. With struggling students, content often has to be framed in order to get them to buy in, meaning that they often need to know what's in it for them. Place an emphasis on how this information will help them in next year's classes. Talk to the students about summer brain drain and how they will be more prepared to hit the ground running come August. Okay, as an aside, I'm not exactly sure if that will work because these kids didn't care about work in August last time, but maybe. Okay, here we go. Framing the time spent as beneficial in the long run might get them to try a little harder. Here are some ideas for how to emphasize how the information learned during summer school will benefit students in the future. Now, I'm not going to read all of this, but I'll give you the takeaways. So, real world application is just talking about how the concepts learned in school relate to the real world. I think every teacher should be doing this anyway, no matter what they teach, as much as they can. Now, maybe some of this stuff will go over their head, or they may not be able to understand it yet. But if you can teach students in chemistry how boiling stuff equates to cooking, maybe there's some tie in there that they can relate to. The next thing they talk about is transition support. Address specific areas where students may encounter difficulties during grade transitions or changes in curriculum. I know when you're jumping from algebra to algebra 2, or a lot of times geometry is between algebra and algebra 2, they're very different maths and they could be quite difficult. Biology, chemistry, anatomy, all of these sciences are quite difficult as well. And I think you have all of these different transition points no matter what the subject is. I can remember teaching English 2 and English 3. And it was so difficult to go from English 2 to English 3 because I feel like the step up in the rigor in the type of reading that they were doing was was huge. So definitely you want to address these transitions and support the kids in those areas specifically. Okay, third thing, skill reinforcement. Emphasize the importance of ongoing practice and reinforcement of academic skills throughout the summer months. I remember they used to have these lists of books that they wanted you to read. I remember never reading those books. Unfortunately, it probably would have helped. But I was a good student. I didn't feel like I needed to read these books. Of course, looking back now, I wish I would have been more of an avid reader. I think I didn't dislike reading, but I would much rather play video games. Like, who wouldn't, throughout grade school? I'll probably do some of this kind of reading with my son as he gets older. And I mean, honestly, now, but finding ways for us to read together, I think would be a great way to help him to love reading. Even if it's not the books that you read in school, finding stuff to read is always going to be important. Okay, so we're going to move on to the fourth and final thing that the article says will help you to get to know your students, and that is setting academic goals. Guide students in setting academic goals for the summer and beyond. Encourage them to identify specific objectives such as improving math fluency, expanding vocabulary, or mastering key concepts in a particular subject. I really like this one because it helps to take the elephant and put it into like bite-sizable pieces, because it's very hard to think, oh, I have to learn all of said subject, right? Instead, you just go concept by concept or go, well, what's the hardest thing? Let's just get competent level at that, even if we're not mastering it, because mastering is quite difficult. I think that's where we are reached to. But let's at least get to the point where we know how to do it. Even the basic level stuff, we can get through it with a minimal amount of difficulty. So I think that's one way to set good academic goals. So throughout the first point of getting to know your students, it tells us to find some real world application, help them with transition support going from one subject to the next with that step up being more rigorous. The next thing is skill reinforcement. And then the last thing is setting academic goals for whatever it is that they may be learning in summer school. All right. Second thing, incorporate technology. I don't think that any of us will have a problem with this at this point. If this was pre-COVID, then yeah. But come to think about it, some teachers are still struggling with making things more technological instead of printing out a ton of papers. I know depending on the subject, it could be a little bit more difficult, but as much as you can, try to incorporate technology. And I don't mean just games. I mean just things like OneDrive documents or Google Classrooms where people can work on stuff at the same time and share it. Being able to create these discussion posts where people can share their work, and so now you can kind of help people teach and they'll learn from each other as opposed to everybody coming to the teacher for everything. I'll go, hey, just go check the discussion post. What is everybody else doing? What are the good ideas there? Who can help you there? So those are some other ways that I try to incorporate technology into my classroom. But I mean, this should be a given by now. If you're a teacher and you're not incorporating technology, eh, you know, let's just do better, right? Let's take one step forward. Next thing, I think this is thing number 3, focus on preparation for next year. So it says, these might not be your kids. You might not even teach the courses being offered during summer school. That doesn't mean you can't use this brief time of teaching summer school to expand your teaching practices for next year. I like this. You can start to really try out new things because you're in a new classroom. You got just a couple of weeks and you go, hey, why not throw some things at the wall and see what sticks? I know that I had a former teacher that worked at a different school, but we all would PLC or we would do planned learning committees in the summertime right before school started. And one of the big areas where they would do a lot of testing was in summer school. So they would come back and they would share their course online and they would go, okay, this is all the stuff that we did in Schoology. This stuff really worked. You're only on a 2-week time crunch. So this is how we were able to get more stuff done, become more efficient, become more effective. So I do like this idea of taking summer school to really try out some of these new ideas that you may have, especially if you're teaching the same subject that you teach during the school year. The last thing it does say is do some experimenting with blended learning as well, since many summer school programs now have significant online components. So that just goes back to the technology piece where you should try to find ways to blend the online and the in-person aspects. I think we may be doing almost too much online because a lot of people, they just want to text and they want to send videos and they want to do this stuff at home instead of talking to the person that is sitting right next to you. That is something that I think a lot of teachers are dealing with, myself included. So there has to be more of a balance, right? I'm kind of swinging the pendulum back. I think there has to be a balance when the work is being done, that online can be incorporated and used when needed, but not strictly making everything online, because you do start to lose that social aspect. And that part is also very, very important for the kids. Last thing is my favorite: have fun. It says, yes, no one wants to be there. Yes, you only have 2 weeks teaching summer school in which to fit a lot of material. That doesn't mean that the room can't be fun or that you forget the engagement strategies you use during the traditional school year. I don't know about you all, my fellow educator, but if I'm in the classroom and I'm not having fun, the kids are probably not having fun either. And now the learning environment is just, the word that comes to mind is sticky. It's not loose. It's not comfortable for everyone. So let's try to not forget to have fun whenever you're in the classroom, whenever you are teaching kids. Try to make it as fun as possible. I know not everything is going to be fun, right? Slope and linear equations and parabolas and Beowulf and some of these other subjects that I can think of in my mind, moles, that stuff was not fun. But as much as we can, working around those things that are kind of difficult and maybe boring, as much as we can, let's try to have some fun when we step into the classroom. So, to recap, first things first, accentuate. That's a great word. The positive while teaching summer school. Okay, number 2, get to know your students. You can do this through, we're going to go letters here: A, real world applications; B, transition support; C, skill reinforcement; and D, setting academic goals. That will leave us on number 3 here: incorporate technology. You want to do this as much as you can, but you want to have a balance between having things accessible and encouraging students to be social. Number 4, focus on preparation for next school year. Experiment. Use this time to make some changes to your own curriculum or to your own processes. And lastly, number 5, have fun. Yes, no one wants to be there, but you have to be. So, have some fun. With that being said, that is our episode for today. Of course, I'll have someone else on this Thursday, another educator, to talk about these things in detail. For more teacher tips on burnout and time management, join our Facebook group, Teacher Triumphs, Overcoming Burnout and Balancing Life. This is where we share applicable strategies and encourage each other on the journey through education. Until the next time, keep teaching, keep learning, and I will see you all on the next journey.